What's that? It's my
commander. Furbies were the most terrifying craze of the 90s, and now, thanks to Secret Lair, you too can evoke that same fear in your opponents, because nothing says nightmare fuel like turning your childhood trauma into a commander deck. I'm James, better known as MTG Versus, and today we are building Umbris Fear Manifest on a budget of $250, or just under £200 here in the land of Shakespeare, bad weather and crippling anxiety. Stick around to the end because this deck finishes with one of the nastiest exile bombs you'll ever see. It's the kind of card that'll make your playgroup groan before you even resolve it. Our commander is Umbris Fear Manifest. Umbris is now officially a Furby. For 5 mana in Dimir colours, Umbris is a 1/1 that gets +1/+1 for each card your opponents own in exile, and whenever Umbris or another nightmare or horror enters the battlefield under your control, target opponent exiles cards from the top of their library until they exile a land. So, what is the plan? Exile as many cards as possible, pump Umbris into an absolute beast and swing in for terrifying commander damage, all while protecting ourselves. Because, let's be honest, when Umbris is staring them down, your opponents are going to want to fight back, just like I wanted to fight my Furby as a kid. Since Umbris costs 5 mana, we need to hit that sweet spot as early as possible. And to do that, we've got cards like Ancient Cellar, 3 mana for a 3/3 horror, triggers Umbris, that also reduces the cost of your demons, horrors and nightmares by 1, and when you do cast a discounted horror, nightmare or demon, it will ping an opponent for 1. Defiler of Flesh, a 4 mana 4/4 horror, again triggering Umbris, with Menace. It lets you pay 2 life to reduce the cost of your black permanents by 1 black mana, and every time you cast a black permanent, you can give a creature +1/+1 and Menace until end of turn if you use the ability. Along with classic ramp pieces like Everflowing Chalice, Soul Ring, Wayfarer's Bauble, both Signets and Mind Stone, all of which make sure Umbris hits the battlefield before turn 5. All that mana is no good if we run out of gas, so let's talk card draw. With Doomweaver, a 6 mana for an absolutely terrifying 1/8 horror with Reach and Soulbound, as long as Doomweaver is paired with another creature, both creatures gain. When this creature dies, draw cards equal to its power. Dread Presence, a 4 mana 3/3 nightmare. Every time a swamp enters the battlefield under your control, you either draw a card and lose 2 life, or deal 2 damage to any target and gain 2 life. Both modes are brilliant in this deck. Grazilax, Illithid Scholar, 3 mana horror on a 3/2 body. It will protect your creatures when they're blocked, and it draws cards whenever your creatures deal combat damage to a player, and obviously with it being a horror, it will trigger Umbris. Gravestorm, a triple black enchantment that, at the beginning of your upkeep, forces each opponent to either exile a card from their graveyard, feeding Umbris, or let you draw a card. Distant Melody lets you name a creature type, for instance, horror, and draw a card for each one you control. And, of course, Windfall, because drawing is more fun if everyone's doing it. If you're enjoying this deck tech so far, please consider subscribing. Think of it like feeding the algorithm the same way we're feeding Umbris. The more it eats, the scarier it gets. Plus, it really helps a growing channel out, and you won't miss the next ridiculous pile that I brew. Now, we're going to be doing a lot of shenanigans before Umbris even comes down, so we need to make sure our board state is protected. With Web of Inertia, a 3 mana blue enchantment, at the beginning of each opponent's combat phase, they have to exile a card from their graveyard if they want to attack you. Otherwise, no swings your way. Cunning Rhetoric, a 3 mana black enchantment. Whenever an opponent attacks you or a planeswalker you control, you exile the top card of their library and you may play that card for as long as it remains exiled using mana of any colour. Perfect synergy. Spellskite, a 2 mana 0/4 Phyrexian horror. Yes, it will trigger Umbris, and it lets you redirect spells or abilities to itself by paying blue or 2 life. Protection and horror synergy in 1. Sludge Monster, 5 mana 5/5 horror, again triggering Umbris. Whenever it attacks or enters, you put a slime counter on another creature. Non-horror creatures with slime counters lose all abilities and become 2/2s. And when Umbris finally shows up, we want to make sure it sticks and can swing. We've got Whisper Silk Cloak for unblockable and Shroud, Aqueous Form for unblockable and a scry on attack, and Swiftfoot boots for haste and hexproof. It's all well and good protecting ourselves, but we're still going to need to deal with our opponents. Hullbreaker Horror, a 7 mana uncounterable 7/8 horror with flash. You will trigger Umbris and no one can do anything about it. And then, whenever you cast a spell, you can choose either to return target spell you don't control to its owner's hand, or return target non-land permanent to its owner's hand. We've got Phyrexian Revoker, a 2 mana 2/1 Phyrexian Horror, again triggering Umbris, and it can shut down a card. Alongside that, we've got spot removal of Eaten Alive, Reality Shift, Resculpt, Ravenform, Baleful Mastery, all exile effects feeding Umbris. And we have more backup, Miscast for counter protection, Feed the Swarm for pesky enchantments, and Snap for a free bounce. It's all well and good being able to take care of individual threats, but what if we need to do more? We have Curse of the Swine, an X blue that exiles X creatures and replaces them with 2/2 balls, feeding Umbris again. We have Living Death, exile all creatures from graveyards, then sacrifice all creatures and replace them with the exiled ones. Weird, but can be devastating in a late game when you've controlled the graveyards all along. Blasphemous Edict for a universal wipe, and Kindred Dominance. Keep your horrors and everything else goes. Now, I did mention controlling graveyards. That's not going to be an issue here. We've got Nemesis of Reason, a 5 mana 3/7 when it attacks, defending player mills 10. Consuming Aberration, 5 mana, power and toughness equal to the number of cards in opponent's graveyards. Every time you cast a spell, each opponent mills until they hit a land. Sewer Nemesis, a 4 mana horror with power toughness equal to the number of cards in a chosen player's graveyard, and whenever that chosen player casts a spell, they mill a card. Mindskinner, 3 blue, 10/1 horror that can't be blocked, and all damage dealt turns into mill. Maddening Cacophony, 2 mana, each opponent mills 8. You can pay a kicker cost of 4 to make them mill half their library, rounded up. Court of Cunning makes you the monarch. On upkeep, each opponent mill 2, or 10 if you're still the monarch. And Imperious Mindbreaker, 3 mana 1/4 with Soulbound. As long as it's paired, both creatures have whenever this creature attacks. Each opponent mills cards equal to its toughness. All of this fills the graveyard for us to exile later. And now the fun part. Exile it all. We've got Tormod's Crypt, a 0 mana artifact that exiles all cards from a target graveyard. Lantern of the Lost, a 1 mana artifact, exiles a card when it enters. You can pay 1 and sacrifice to exile all graveyards and then draw. Planar Void, a 1 mana enchantment. All cards headed to the graveyard are exiled instead. Soul Guide Lantern, a 1 mana artifact, exile a card on ETB, then sack later to exile all graveyards. Delphi Voidwalker, 2 mana 3/2 with Shadow, and another replacement effect that sends cards to exile instead of the graveyard. You can then sacrifice Delphi to play one of those cards yourself. Leyline of the Void, 4 mana or free if it's in your opening hand for the same replacement exile effect, along with lands like Bajuka Bog and Scavenger Grounds for even more exile. But that can be one step too many. We've also got direct exile tools. Stone of Eric, 1 mana, exiles creatures when they die. Rogue Class exiles a card whenever you deal combat damage to a player without needing to upgrade it. Yarok's Fenlurker, a 2 mana horror 1/1 on ETB, each opponent exiles a card from their hand, and it will trigger Umbris. Ashiok Dreamrender and Ashiok Nightmare Muse, both planeswalkers with exile abilities, with Nightmare Muse also making 2/3 Nightmare tokens that exile cards whenever they attack or block. Oblivion Sower, 6 mana Eldrazi, makes target opponent exile 4 cards and lets you put one of their lands into play. Elder Brain, 7 mana 6/6 horror, again triggering Umbris. When it attacks, you exile the defending player's hands, and you can cast those cards using mana of any colour. And the nail in the coffin, Ulamog the Defiler, 10 mana 7/7 on ETB, target opponent exiles half their library rounded up. It gets counters equal to the highest mana value of the exiled card, and also gets Annihilator equal to that number. Absolutely disgusting. That's the list. A nightmare mash of exile, mill, and good old-fashioned horror tribal chaos. The full deck list is on my Moxfield, linked in the description. If you've enjoyed this breakdown, please like, comment, subscribe, and do all the things the algorithm loves. It really would help a growing channel out. and it will tell YouTube that you too secretly fear Furbies. Drop a comment with what commander you want to see next, and thank you for watching.